Sup clowns, Jester the Moon here, and I found something material worthy, and rather quickly too. So today we're covering a user by the name of that Two-Faced Critic, a new commentator who seems to have been doing comms for about a month now. That Two-Faced Critic decided to make a video on Temporal times Commentaries. Look, nothing wrong with those folks at all. In fact, I know them and I'm friends with some of them. Fuck, I'm even a member of the group. But you see, every time a new commentary chain comes out, they are always somehow in the chain somewhere. But I digress. Anyways, T.T.C made a commentary on Clownmentary, who did a video on a Star Wars spin-off called The Acolyte. So let's establish the degrees here. So degree 0 is Clownmentary's video, degree 1 is T.T.C's video, and degree 2 is that Two-Faced Critic's video, and degree 3 is Jorb's truly. Also, as a real quick thing to note, I will be using different avatars for each degree, so degree 1 will be Jeff Probst, and degree 2 will be Cream the Rabbit from Sonic the Hedgehog. Anyway, without further ado, let's get right into this!
Do I look like someone who cares what God thinks?
Almost impossible.
Grrr, not even one say it! But really, oh my god, why? No, really, would it have killed you to have the video's aspect ratio be set to 16:9? I thought we were over this problem in 2016. Like, you could have just stretched the video to envelop the screen. Any editing software worth its salt can do so. Fuck, even Windows Movie Maker can do that. So, no excuses here about bad editing software or whatnot. Hell, you know what? I suggest you use Shotcut if you're looking for a solid free editing software if you are by chance using a bad one. It's really easy to use and even easier to just fix your fuck-ass aspect ratio. All you gotta do is click on the clip, then click on the properties, and then you should see the aspect ratio, and then change it to 16:9.
Possible to take interest in what the characters do or the events they get into. One reason for this is the lack of character specificity. The way we meet the hero is that she's working as an expert mechanic on this cargo ship, but her being a mechanic isn't a real thing. She uses her droid to fix one module, and that's pretty much it. The mechanic aspect doesn't come more into play, not in this first episode or the later ones, except for the droid maybe once or twice being used as a magical Swiss Army knife.
The droid would not be able to fix the ship without someone or something carrying it outside of the ship. The droid is only a tool droid that cannot really move on its own. You can say this is stupid and dangerous, and you're probably right, because it's a corrupt company that's using people in dangerous situations to possibly shave some cash.
See, this would be a point if he had actually said what she was doing was stupid or dangerous, or even mentioned the company to begin with. Unfortunately for you, this is far from the fucking case here. Where you were starting off from in the interjection in the beginning was a good point, but then you had to go on a tangent that's based on something Clownmentary didn't even mention. God fucking damn it.
Also, yes, a tool is being used as a tool. And are you sure you could have done that? Do you know how this droid works?
Off. Nice that you're interrupting him during his argument. Second, when did he ever talk about the company that she worked for? You literally can't find that clip in any parts of the video. Interjection literally means nothing to the overall video. Why did you even say any of this?
She literally wasn't, though. Creeper made her interjection when the point Clownmentary said was already done and over with, and had a segment where he put a fucking Smash Bros meme there to break up the point and add a little bit of humor. Unless you count the small bit that you see show up at the end of that part, when the next point is on screen for barely a second. But even then, that's a fucking stretch if I've ever seen one, due to nothing even being said at all that was of importance for them to interrupt in the first place.
Only special thing about the hero to take interest in is that she's a former Jedi student who left the Order for reasons unknown. And even that's not a real thing.
Left the Order for reasons unknown. This is literally explained within the show. She got too attached to her witch cult and decided to leave because of that. You know, given how she was under the impression of her sister dying. Are you not going to mention this?
Osha lost both her mothers and her sister and blamed her sister for killing their family. She cannot let go of these attachments, and that caused her to leave the Order. Sounds pretty familiar.
God, if I had a nickel for every time I covered a collab commentary that was about Star Wars, they had every point repeated by the same person, but just worse.
I'd have 2 nickels.
Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Alright, but for real, Toga's point was already good and explained why he was wrong. It really wasn't necessary to have the same thing said twice.
It sounds just like Max Rebo! I guess Film Man forgot what poetry was and why it rhymes.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
She's not used.
You just sit through that entire point and be like, why is that point in the video? To show that their video was not structured well. Have Toganium make a point, an actually okay, decent argument, then have Creeper randomly add a 10-second interval that does nothing. They had just had Toganium's summary, would have been totally fine with the jokes. Also, nice that you guys keep interrupting him during the middle of his points.
First, no, you don't know how I think, you don't know how I feel, get out of my head, get out of my head, get out of my head! Secondly, if Toga's points and jokes were fine, then why did you feel the need to bring them up, when they clearly had no relevance to the issue you had with it at hand? Thirdly, why didn't you just interject when Creeper repeated Toga's point? It would have saved some time on your end for sure, plus it would have just made sense to do so rather than waiting longer. Finally, do you actually just not know how fucking commentaries work? Like, you keep saying that they're interrupting him when that truly isn't the case at all. They're interjecting after a point is made. Interjections are made on a point-by-point basis, unless you're doing an interjection that covers a few points in one go. Like, you do commentaries. You should know how this works! Now, let's just say that they interjected at a bad time before the rest of the point could be made. Then yes, absolutely call that shit out. But at the same time though, my guy, you gotta show evidence of them doing so to be able to use that argument in the first place. I'm sorry, try again!
Her Jedi skills or choosing not to use them because they're a trauma for her or something. No, she tries to use the Force once and fails, and that's it.
So believing that your sister died right before joining the Jedi is not a trauma? Get a load of this guy.
Alright sis, but one problem with this, he literally didn't say that her sister dying wasn't a form of trauma. Matter of fact, he literally says the exact opposite by acknowledging its existence. Pay attention to what people say. If you don't, it looks incredibly sloppy on your end. It's made worse by the fact that y'all definitely scripted this video, and probably had checkers too that definitely should have brought this up.
Also, she probably lost touch with the Force because she has been separated from the Jedi for so long. That's definitely a possibility.
We see Osha have what seems to be panic attacks from the show. That sounds like she might have some trauma to me.
Is there a lore reason why Filmento forgot this? Is he stupid?
You see, this is a reference to Batman Arkham World.
The only
First, Togadia, did Anakin lose touch with the Force after he left the Jedi? I find it funny. She's supposed to have trauma from the Jedi because her sister died before he joined. That's like someone's grandma dying before they go to Burger King and having trauma about Burger King. And Creeper. Oh no, she breathed a dramatic way. She has trauma! Filmento, how did you not get that? And of course, just making a random insult for no reason.
So, a few things. The way that you record your lines is actually kind of hard to listen to, not just because you're speaking fairly quietly, albeit that is part of the problem, but it's because of how your audio jumps around and gets cut off in parts of your sentence. I can tell this is due to the fact that you've recorded your lines in multiple segments. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with segmenting your lines. I just want to get that out there. But there's a few caveats with that, though. The first one is that it's fine if you have a really long interjection that addresses multiple points made at once. And the second one being is that it doesn't break up sentences in a way that makes it disjointed and hard to understand what the fuck is even going on. The next thing to address here is that Anakin did kind of lose a bit of touch with the Force, actually. After the final battle in Mustafar between Anakin and Obi-Wan, where Anakin loses both his legs and his arms, he lost a lot of midichlorians. And to those who don't know what midichlorians are, they're basically cellular organisms, and depending on the count that you have, it'll make someone more or less aware and adept with the Force. You can lose them by getting severe injuries like, limbs being severed and whatnot, or losing a lot of blood. And as you can imagine, being reduced to a head and an arm and a torso will make you lose lots of midichlorians, and by extension, being less in touch with the Force. Like, Darth Vader is still strong, but far weaker than he was before Revenge of the Sith, and it is displayed as such in the original trilogy. Case and point being, yes, Anakin did in fact get weaker and or lose some touch with the Force when he left the Jedi Order by turning to the dark side, since that was what led to the battle with Obi-Wan. Thirdly, what the fuck are you saying? Like, actually, I'm incredibly confused where your point is being directed at. Is it at Creeper, or is it at Filmento? Because you address Creeper initially, and then say, how did you not get that, Filmento? If it's really Creeper you're talking about, I would be inclined to tell you that that wasn't her point. She literally said OSHA has panic attacks due to said trauma, and even shows a clip of her awakening from a nightmare, hyperventilating. That, from what I can tell, looks like a panic attack, or just waking up from a really fucked up and scary dream that was a flashback of sorts. And the way Creeper was talking about it, it wasn't really a point against her having trauma. Now, as for Filmento, he never really made much of a point that was against OSHA having trauma, unless you consider him saying that she, quote-unquote, has trauma or something, as a point against it. But that would be a big stretch to say that. Also, what's with the whisper yelling? What, are you too afraid to wake up your parents? Finally, oh no! Insults in a commentary? What? Who fucking who? Stop crying, you fucking baby. See, here's the thing. I think insults are fine, provided that it's just a pot shot that isn't really meant to be taken that seriously. And that you still make a proper counter-argument or whatnot too. Like what I just did earlier in this interjection here is an example of such. And what Toga did in the interjection by saying, is he stupid? It's just some spice to bring more flavor and life into your points and whatnot, instead of just having the interjection equivalent of a bread sandwich seasoned with asbestos. So really, this last bit you make here is just a nothing burger that really wasn't worth bringing up in the first place.
Tangible worth and content she offers by being a former Jedi is that people talk about it.
OSHA joining the Jedi Order literally sets off the plot of the show. If OSHA did not want to join the Jedi Order, then she would not have gotten into a fight with her sister May, and Soul and the other Jedis would not have attacked the witch cult she lived in. Literally, if she did not want to join the Jedi Order, the show would not have...
His argument actually does make sense, but Toganium's gonna ruin it.
So, if you agree with her, then why make this an interjection? Oh my fucking god!
Hey, so it's like 2:53 a.m. when I'm recording this post point. Hi, so yeah, post point Jarbo here. Hey, Two-Faced, did you ever stop to consider that, you're being inconsistent as fuck? For the literal reason being that you chastise Creeper and Toganium for allegedly cutting in while Filmento is making his point, even though you're doing the fucking same. So I don't want to fucking hear it, Dollar Store and Arrows Q.
It's really cool how you took this out of context, mate.
Toganium, what are they doing in that clip? Oh yeah, talking about it. It really disprove anything. And what Filmento is saying is that she doesn't bring any, ability, she doesn't bring any skills, she doesn't bring anything that could be from her training. That's what Filmento is arguing, not that her being a former Jedi means nothing in the story.
Finally passed your trials.
At midnight.
The major concern about admitting you to the Order was your...
She was a devoted Padawan. I trained her.
How do you know this former Padawan?
I was trained to be a Jedi. When that didn't pan out, those skills aren't exactly,
Me when I get angry at dialogue scenes because I have the attention span of a 5-year-old.
But you ever heard of not throwing stones from glass houses? With this argument, your house is dust. Both you and Toganium have been interrupting him in the middle of his arguments. People with low attention spans now?
Nope. Your logic is actually the one throwing stones while being in a glass house, because if we were to go by it, then you would also be interrupting people in the middle of their points. Probably even more so, considering the fact that when Creeper and Toga had interjected, they weren't even interjecting at a part where Filmento was even talking. They were responding to a stupid meme he made in his videos. Again, you should really watch more commentaries more often, because good lord, your beginnerness is showing. And before those in the comments say anything about me, I've been around longer than y'all think. Much longer. Like 6 or 7 years-ish, if memory serves correct. Albeit with a different channel that is sadly no longer around. Case in point being, I don't think the attention span of them is the right angle to counter with, nor is the foundation of the overall point you made here. Because you yourself were unable to pay attention to what they were even doing.
Altogether, the hero in practice isn't an expert mechanic or former Jedi or anything. She's just a character, and she could be swapped out with almost any other character without her scenes in practice changing at all. The one and only reason we should find interest in her and her scenes is because she's the hero of a Star Wars show. So look at me and be amazed.
I'm going viral on Twitter again.
No, I don't think I will.
She could not be swapped out for anyone else, as most people are not twins, and most people are especially not made out of the Force.
Also, this clip is weirdly made. I think he's trying to say he won't look at her, but it comes off as him saying he won't 20 million views. That makes no sense. Also, she never said to look at her. You just put the words into her mouth and then said you would not do it. Makes me think you're looking at her.
Okay, can I ask you a genuine question?
What was the point in this?
Like, really, I don't think it's worth making a point out of something that is honestly as inconsequential as if he put words in a character's mouth or not, or quote-unquote looking at her. And while we're on that, what do you mean by that, Creeper? Do you mean just him looking at her because she's on screen and is the focal point of the scene, or just the story in general, or do you possibly mean looking at her? Ugh. I'm pretty sure it's the former, considering that he makes a comment about her being the main character and whatnot. Also, one last thing to leave on is he wasn't saying he won't look at her.
Pay attention!
In other words, saying, no, I will not do this, only makes sense if someone told you to do something.
From now on, both of you might as well be rocks by how thick in the head both of you are. Like,
man, consistency is dead!
And you fucking killed it.
Like, look. You literally just got on them for using insults earlier in this video, and now you're just contradicting yourself at this rate by now using insults. Fucking Christ, man. If you're gonna state principles for others to follow by, at least practice what you preach.
Toganium said character, not actor, are different, you know.
What? Alright, but you really missed the point here. Toga was stating that due to how she's written into the story, she couldn't have been replaced with a different character because it wouldn't have worked the same. Notice how I say character, because that's literally what both Filmento and Toga say here, and that's basically it. Neither of them were making points confusing the character or actor at all. Are you smoking crack? And if so, who's your dealer? I want some.
Genuinely confuses me how you hear him say, the only reason why we should find interest in her character is because she's the hero of a Star Wars play. Oh, look at me and be amazed. Hear that. See the visual gag. Take the visual gag as literally as possible. Now not connect the visual gag to what he was saying a second before, and try to make fun of Filmento for looking at her.
You can't say that Creeper took the visual gag too literally, and then say she took nothing out of it for her point. Those statements are incongruous, and don't make any real iota of sense when put together. That'd be like saying it was such a hot day outside, so you decided to put on a winter coat.
It's pretty pathetic.
I mean, even the Jedis here are so void of special specificity that the main reason you can even tell them apart is because they're all different colors. No Mace Windu to bring attitude, no Anakin to bring individuality.
First off, it sounds strange to call people of different races different colors. Second off, these characters are different. Soul is an individual who does not always listen to the order.
Vernestra, you know, the green one, is incredibly corrupt. She framed Saul for a murder in order to keep the Sith coming back a secret.
Jackie is a Padawan who tries to be mature to be taken seriously.
This is why she usually asks for permission before speaking.
And Yord's Yord.
The Yord Horde was formed for a reason.
Yord for Chancellor.
May I ask a question? If I raise my hand, is that my personality? Because that's what you're saying here. Also, oh no, he said color instead of race. Oh wait, Toganium said green guy not even 10 seconds later. So, how does scheming show a personality? Please tell me how that shows a personality.
So, a few things once again. So, firstly, they weren't saying these little quirks are their personalities. They were mentioning character traits that just happen to make them stand out and whatnot that wasn't just their race. Little cliff notes, so to speak, that give some flavor to the character. That being said, you can't really compare simply raising your hand to someone being incredibly corrupt to the point where they frame some other guy for murder, because raising your hand is just a neutral action. It isn't indicative of somebody's character. However, framing somebody for murder is! The overall point I'm trying to get across here is that your example is very flawed because you are comparing apples to oranges. Second thing here is that Creeper did bring up that Filmento was saying colors instead of race, but I think you missed the point at how she even addressed it in the first place. She wasn't making a fuss about it. I know this because all she says with a fairly neutral tone, mind you, is that it's strange that he's referring to races as colors. It barely took a moment to even address, and then they moved on. Why are you nitpicking something something that was easy to understand in the first place and wasn't a major point of contention from Toga and Creeper. Thirdly, you act like Toga specifying Renestra as the quote-unquote green one somehow debunks his point, and no, it really doesn't, for the reason being that he was pointing out so people who maybe haven't seen the Acolyte knows who he's talking about. This really isn't hypocrisy on his end, and is him trying to be helpful to the audience who may not know the Acolyte and its characters. Big difference.
Oh my gosh. There is literally soap everywhere.
I'm gonna give some general advice to Creeper and Toganium here. Please listen to someone's complete argument about something before interrupting them. Don't take jokes so literally. Don't just add elaboration for elaboration. Anyways, bye.
Ah, yes, my favorite final thoughts segment that claims to both cover Creeper and Toganium, but then only covers the issues you had with Toga. Bruh. Like, if you're doing a final thought segment on a co-op commentary, it's best to either address each of the problems with each member of the co-op individually, or alternatively, you could also just say the problems you have with everyone collectively. Keep it simple, stupid!
That is not in the game. That does not exist in the game. This is not a thing that is in Minecraft. Are you? I gotta get a closer look at this fucking thing.
So, final thoughts. Let's start off with Two-Faced here first. So, my suggestions for you to improve as a commentator are actually quite simple. The first one being to make sure that with each video you cover, make sure that the aspect ratio is set to 16:9 for a nice full screen look for both the material and your interjections. The second thing to really bring up is don't jump the gun to conclusions right away. The main instances of this I observed here was when you had said that Toga and Creeper were interrupting Filmento's points, when it is clear as day that they aren't and are interjecting after Filmento made his point or a meme he made pops up, which are definitely reasonable times to put in an interjection for sure. Now, if they were cutting in too early, please show which part they cut off to prove that they did interrupt and cut context. It would make the foundation of your overall points with that a lot more solid and believable. The third thing to bring up is when recording your lines, just do one paragraph in one take. Don't split it up into too many segmented lines. This will overall make your points and your interjections flow by a lot smoother for your audience, and it'll also make editing a little less tedious as well. The fourth thing to bring up is consistency. Please, Two-Faced, whenever you are making your points, please be sure to make sure that your argument is clear and easy to understand and is consistent. Like, one such instance I can bring up is when you made a point against Toga stating that insults or ad hominem is bad, but then later you did so yourself. Lastly, put some more effort into your line delivery to make yourself sound more lively for your points. I think you can definitely become a good commentator for sure, but you need to work on incorporating these suggestions into your style. I wish you well for any future commentaries you end up making. Now, as for Creeper and Toga, I really don't have too much to say to you guys other than just pay attention, don't make mountains out of molehills, and make sure you guys don't repeat each other's points in the same interjection. Oh, one more thing, and look both ways before crossing the street. Anyway, that's all from me, and if you liked what you've seen, maybe show the channel some support by liking and subscribing, as well as check out the groups that I'm a part of as well in the description. Anyways, that's all from me. Bye-bye!